So, welcome again. This is the Cues of Color Queerantine series and our first ever workshop about mental health. My name is Victoria Lana Sabala Lane, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. So to get started, I just wanted to start a grounding exercise. We're going to do this in order to get better connected with each other and just be able to ground ourselves a little more, be on the same or similar wavelength. And first, we're going to start by settling into a comfortable position with your feet on the ground, if possible, and the palms of your hands resting on your legs. Begin by taking a few slow, deep breaths, breathing in fully and exhaling fully. Breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Allow your breath to find its own natural rhythm. Continue breathing and feel the cool air come in through your nose and flow all the way down your stomach. Feel your stomach expand out as you breathe deeply. Follow the air all the way in and all the way out. Mindfully be present moment by moment with your breath. If your mind wanders away from your breath, just notice without judging it. Be it a thought, emotion, or sensation that hooks your attention and gently guide your awareness back to your breathing. Notice the breath, how it feels as it softly flows in through your nose, into your throat, and further down it goes. As you turn more deeply inward, begin to let go of noises around you. If you are distracted by sounds in the room, simply notice them and then bring your attention back to your breath. Watch the thought as it enters your awareness as neutrally as possible. Then imagine letting go of the thought as if it were a leaf floating down a stream. Then bring your attention back to your breath. Your breath is an anchor you can return to over and over again. When you feel that you've become distracted by thoughts, listen very carefully and quietly to what you hear happening within your body. Can you hear your heart beating? Can you hear your breath as you breathe slowly and calmly in and out? Allow the breath to fill up your whole body now, and enjoy as the energy goes into each and every cell, each and every muscle of your body. Okay. And now bring your attention to some of those muscles in your body. Be in the present moment. Now, when you're ready, you may open your eyes, wake up a little bit, and give your body a big stretch so that we can all be ready. So thank you for participating in that. And it's okay if you didn't, because I also wanted to do something else. After our grounding exercise, I wanted to do a virtual reflection. So right now, grab your phone or a piece of paper and something to write with, or a piece of paper. You don't have to do both. And I want you to take a moment to reflect on how the past 3 months have been for you during quarantine. Think about one word or sentence that can sum up your thoughts and feelings. Write it down and then forget about it during this workshop. I'll do it with you, but I just wanted to do this so that we could take advantage of the grounding exercise. Not everyone is able to do meditation every day. So this is a good time to try to reflect if your mind is a little bit more clear, and just one word or sentence will do. Okay, so I'm gonna move us along and addressing questions. Go ahead and write down any questions that come up for you, and I will set aside time at the end. Also, if there's any questions that you may not want to say in front of everyone, you can also use the cues of color email that I'm going to also talk about at the end, along with our resources. So just go ahead and do what feels right for you. I also wanted to add this. This is a Just Peachy comic. They have a lot of comics related to mental health. And this one in particular, I wanted to add that it states mental illness isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility. It is no one else's responsibility but your own for your own behavioral health symptoms. And just as a little reminder. So I wanted to start with how to initially recognize your own mental health needs. The first step could be to take a moment to reflect on the current state of your mental health symptoms like we did earlier. That type of grounding and meditation really helps, and it really makes you feel like you can reflect on certain aspects of your life that you may not be able to when you're very busy. And the next step could be to assess if you would like to improve the current state of your mental health symptoms. So something that everyone always talks about with social workers is, and also mental health needs in general, is that someone cannot force you to change. You need to change for yourself when you want to yourself. So that step, I wanted it to relate to that. And last but not least, seek intervention yourself, because no one else is legally allowed to do this for you. It is not like the movie portrayals that you randomly get thrown into a mental institution. That's not how it works. But this is 2020, not the 1950s. So that's just something also to keep in mind. And all of this actually relates to the stages of change that I simplified into 3 steps, but we will now go through the stages of change in detail. So stage 1 would be pre-contemplation. This includes denial or having no intentions on changing your behaviors. And stage 2 would be contemplation. This includes conflicting emotions and being aware of the existence of a problem, but being unwilling to commit to any action. And stage 3 is preparation. So this stage includes starting to want to take action in addressing the problem and experimenting with small changes. This also can look like finding out more information about change. And I'm sure all of us have Googled something, so that's already halfway into the stages of change. So just Googling something, and that can really be step 3. And step 4 is action, taking action. This is taking direct action towards a goal by modifying your own behaviors. And stage 5 would be maintenance, maintaining a new behavior by replacing old habits with new ones. So stage 6 would be the most important one to be aware of, because the other 5 stages can be self-explanatory, but this one is the most alarming to many people. So this includes falling into old patterns of behaviors that can be neutral or natural, actually. So this can cause frustration and feelings of failure, but this can be seen as a moment of growth for yourself by learning from each relapse and imagining an upward spiral instead of a downward. Move towards identifying your own triggers and remind yourself that relapses are common and it's okay to go through them. So, my main takeaway for this one, I felt that I wanted everyone to learn about, is just be able to tell yourself that relapse is part of the stages of change. You should expect to not be perfect right away, but to tell yourself to do an upward spiral instead of a downward. That little thing to remind yourself would be very helpful. So, how do we begin to improve our own mental health needs? I added a little list, and it includes practicing mindfulness, which we're going through in this workshop, creating boundaries, which we will dive deeper in detail with friends, family, and work. And for my personal boundaries with all three would be turning off my notifications. This is something that I'm aware that not everyone's able to do at all times, but carving out some time every day or a certain day even that you know that you can relax and not hear something ding in the background. It's kind of a Pavlov's dog situation where you feel like, I can speak from my own experience. If I hear a ring, I can feel anxiety. But if I have them turned off, I'm aware that I can leave my phone for an extended amount of time, but still check my phone fairly regularly. And moving on to create a sustainable quarantine schedule. So, this, I was also thinking about breaking up the daily monotony of cycles. During quarantine, in the beginning, it was probably fun to be in pajamas every day, but for that, it could be useful to just start wearing work clothes and doing something out of the regular routine. Don't do something every single day at every single time. Unless it makes you happy, then go ahead. But if you feel kind of stuck and tired of it, do your hair a different way. Experiment with things. Wear an outfit that you've never worn but will never throw away. And also moving on to taking up different hobbies and seeing what sticks. Try out a bunch of different things, not just one thing, and don't expect it to be perfect. No one should pick up a paintbrush for the first time and expect to be Van Gogh, but also you don't need to expect to be Van Gogh ever. You don't need to. If it makes you happy, then it makes you happy. But if you feel frustrated by a hobby that you're not doing well with, or if you feel that you aren't getting the results that you want, move on. It's your life. And reaching out to make connections with your community. So, this could be another step right now. Start by making connections with people attending this workshop. I feel that I wanted to include this because this is a step that you're taking right now by watching this and being here, tuning in. And this is something that is something that you can make connections with on Cuties of Color, anywhere really. So, what is practicing mindfulness? I wanted to simplify this to just noticing what is happening right now. What is helpful about being mindful? Mindfulness relates to meditation, but can be used during everyday activities. You're being fully aware of the present moment and focusing on one thing at a time, while stopping yourself from being overly reactive to situations. Mindfulness can be used towards general things like self-care, daily living, and journaling, but more detailed ones that I thought about included clearing out thought patterns of what if. That's very common right now that I've noticed in everyone during quarantine, is wondering, what if this never, what if it never ends? What if? A lot of what ifs. And being in the present moment really can help with that anxiety, and training your mind to, even if it's for 5 minutes, but 5 minutes a day or every other day, maybe once a week, that could really help you. And also, another detail would be hanging on to positive feelings for longer moments. A lot of people are right now contacting each other virtually, calling each other. And when you call each other, you can hang on to that. When you're getting ready to go to bed, you can remind yourself, I called someone that I love today. That was a great conversation. And I'm glad to use that connection to better help my mental health. You can just remind yourself about the small wins and positive feelings right now. So, I wanted to also simplify mindfulness. It does not need to be stressful. It is not abstract. Mindfulness can be different for every single person. It does not have to fit into a certain category. You do not need to change yourself. Asking someone to change who they are does not prove to be effective long term. And it is an evidence-based practice. It is scientifically proven to help improve human relationships and quality of life. And anyone can do it. Mindfulness does not require anyone to change their beliefs, but challenges them to reflect more on each situation at hand. So, I want to move on to, let's talk about boundaries. Yay! I wanted to include this meme because this is a good example of poor boundaries, not only for ourselves, but also others. But we will start to dive deeper. I'll give you a moment just to read. I'm a slow reader, so I appreciate a little bit of extra time. All right. So this will be including types of boundaries to be aware of. So this would include physical boundaries, which include needs for personal space, physical basic needs like eating, resting, drinking enough water. Emotional boundaries can include emotional sharing and checking in for space if someone has enough space for you. That is something that you want to be aware of your own boundaries, but also remember that everyone has different boundaries. Just like how I mentioned before, it's just mental health looks different for everyone. And time boundaries also include knowing that your time is valuable. You do not need to give your time to any person, place, or thing that you feel is not valid. And that is not something that you need to overly explain or even explain to any person, place, or thing. You can check in with yourself and give yourself time when you need it. And also, sexual boundaries include asking for consent. Work boundaries include asking yourself, am I practicing self-care? There's a lot of work boundaries that really make people feel burnt out. And self-care is the number one thing that helps people from feeling burnt out. And family and friend boundaries include checking in with yourself and really reflecting and reviewing healthy and unhealthy relationships with others in your life. So right now I wanted to check in with everyone and just ask, what is your self-care? I'll take about 2 people, maybe 3 if we want. And it's okay if everyone, if not, if someone doesn't feel like talking, but the chat room, well, actually, I'll take someone through video. But I wanted to ask everyone, what is your self-care? And if you don't have self-care that you practice every day or even every week, what can you do this week for self-care? You can always remind yourself. And as a reminder, I wanted to also kind of divert your attention from Banana Man to self-care during quarantine right over here. For me personally, I walk every day, and I've noticed for the first time in my life that my entire neighborhood is starting to talk to each other during quarantine. And while I walk through my neighborhood, people talk to me on their lawns. It's a lot greater sense of community that I have not experienced before. So if someone wanted to share their self-care, you can go ahead and unmute yourself first and you can share.
Can y'all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, bet. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good.
You guys good? Yeah. Okay. My self-care is just like ducking off. Literally just like cutting my phone off, hopping on social media and just like sticking to myself, really. I feel like sometimes it just takes a lot of energy to sometimes it takes a lot of energy to do anything. It takes a lot of energy. Oh shit.
You're good.
You hear me still?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. It takes a lot of energy to even like get up and just like do anything. Fucking breathe sometimes. So yeah, just duck off when I need to and not feel bad about it. Like it is what it is. I love you guys, but you know, I'll see you later.
That's something I definitely do as well. I feel that that's a boundary that you practice within yourself. And I think that everyone is able to accept boundaries too. That's something that I left out, is that everyone needs to be able to be more aware of each other's boundaries, whether it's something that you may not feel is a boundary you'll ever practice yourself. If someone else needs it, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll share.
Okay.
So in quarantine, actually, something that I already love to do already is garden. I love gardening. Succulents are my thing. But during quarantine, I've gotten really into gardening, and I've done a lot of research on succulents and growing them outdoors. So I've been growing a lot of succulents, cacti from scratch, and I gotten into building. So I've been building a lot of different things outside. I built a garden bed, and this weekend I'm going to build a shelf for all of my plants because there's too many.
Cool. Working with your hands physically can really relieve stress. I really like that. Would anyone else like to share? We can do one more. If no one else would like to share, then I can move on.
I can share.
Okay, cool. You'll be our last one.
Literally just hanging out with my cat because he doesn't talk to me or anything, and then I don't look at him. And he's like super annoying, so he always wants to be around. And that's it.
Cats.
Cats.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah, cats,
Yeah.
petting an animal and having an animal and a living being there is so relaxing, and it makes you feel a different type of connection too. So that's great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, everyone. Okay. So we're moving on to seeking your own therapist. This is something that I wanted to include in this workshop, the first one, because it's something that I talk to with all of my friends, and I always recommend this. We're going to go into a basic first level way of doing it, and I feel that it's probably one of the best way of doing it because everyone can do it. You don't have to be just in Sacramento in the way that I'm going to show you. So first, I wanted to tell people that this is something that you need to ask yourself beforehand. Do I have an idea on exactly what I need support with? You don't always have to have a pinpoint one thing, but it's always best to have an idea of what you want help with, because if you want general therapy that involves validation and talking about day-to-day things, that's great. But it's always best to be working towards a goal and working towards something to better challenge yourself and better help your mental health symptoms. So research what specialization each therapist has and what their focus should be to better fit your needs. This is something that we'll be able to see in a moment, but it definitely helps to know what someone specializes in. Every therapist specializes, or usually they do, specializes in something. And moving on to building a working relationship with your therapist. So the first two sessions can be your time to feel out your comfort levels with each therapist during your hunt for the right one. After 2 sessions, maybe 3, if you don't feel good about them, just move on. Termination is a normal part of therapy, and a therapist practicing good boundaries would not see this as offensive. And I'm telling you now that therapists are trained in termination. They're very aware that normally therapy should not be going on forever, and understanding that would be very normal. And if you feel like it's not right, it can just be a talk, a phone call, an email, or something from you that indicates that you're moving on to someone else, and that's okay. And if it's miraculous, then the last one includes you found the right therapist. So speaking about termination and what that looks like for both of you will determine how many sessions you may have together. Working within a private practice setting allows for more wiggle room and exceptions. So what I'm talking about with private practice having more wiggle room. Normally when you're working with a mental health agency, that agency may have therapists and they may have a standard of 6 to 8 sessions. And within those 6 to 8 sessions, you would want to reach your goal. And that may be a little short of a timeline for you, depending on how often you see them. So speaking about termination with your therapist right away, even if they don't bring it up, it should be something that you talk about in the beginning, and you're able to bring this up yourself if you'd like, because you're able to be more aware of how much time you have together and what pace works for you. I compiled this just to give more of an indication of what the easiest way to go about this, and just also because this is the main website that pretty much all therapists use. They can be verified, and there are other websites, but this one is the most likely to be used. And first slide includes me typing in Psychology Today. And second slide, I go in and type Sacramento. And there to the left is a myriad of things to specify. I circled sexuality for us. And then number 4, I wanted to also highlight insurance plans. So I clicked on Medicare specifically for our example. And then number 5, we can see someone's specializations, and then other issues that they can focus on. So the cost, before we gasp at the price, we can also see that sliding scale is something that I wanted to highlight. So they accept sliding scale. Sliding scale includes taking into consideration our income level. So this is something that I wanted to highlight because once you click on a therapist, do your research through and through and scroll down to this. It will say yes or no. And I wanted to show someone as an example of saying yes to working with what our specific income levels would be. So I wanted to include also a slide showing you all general behavioral health resources. And at the end, I will indicate that we will work through the Cues of Color email to send them out, because it's not fair to make all of you write down resources as I click a slide. So, and I'm also, like I said before, I feel that I'm a slow reader, so even reading them, I'm just, what's happening? So we can email you all the resources. I wanted to highlight the Sacramento County Adult Mental Health Access Number. So this number right here, if you live in Sacramento, they can get you connected with behavioral health resources depending on your needs. And they take Medicaid, Medicare. And I also wanted to highlight the Gender Health Center, and you do not need to live in Sacramento specifically to use the National Domestic Violence Hotline and National Suicide Hotline. Also, I wanted to highlight that if you or someone you know is in a crisis or considering suicide, go to your nearest hospital or call 911. This is also the suicide hotline number. You are all able to take a photo now if you'd like. And the crisis chat is another option too. This is not meant for emergent, life-threatening situations, but a good place for someone to connect with you if you don't want to talk on the phone. Text the word HOPE to this number right here. I'll wait for a moment if anyone wants to take a photo. Okay, so this is our time to reflect. Revisit that word or sentence you wrote earlier and use it to answer this question for yourself. What do I need in order to better support my mental health for these next few months? I included this meme too because I wanted us to remind ourselves, hey, be honest with myself. Because if I'm not honest with myself, who's gonna be? And also, be honest with your therapist. If you decide to seek your own therapist, make sure to tell them the truth, because it's their job to help you through tough situations that you have on your mind. And if you're not truthful with your therapist or yourself, then you're wasting both of your time and energies. So I'll give everyone a moment, and I'll also participate. Okay. So I'm going to now move on. Hopefully, we might have discovered something, or maybe the stages of change might have sparked something that we might not have thought about. And I wanted to highlight this. Please reach out to Cuties of Color through our email to request a copy of General and by qtpoc mental health resources. This is our Gmail. It's also located on our website, which I will show you in just a minute. So it is cutiesofcolor@gmail.com. And now I wanted to open up the floor to anyone who may have any questions, and also show you all some memes, because memes are life, at least to me, if you know me. So if anyone had any questions, you can unmute yourself, and also you have the option to ask through our Gmail, as you can also request our slides that I compiled and the mental health resources list. And there's also a list of by qtpoc specific resources as well. I'll just be a moment here and give you all some time.
I do want to say something. Victoria, I love the self-reflection in the beginning, and it really had me thinking about what do I need these next few months. I don't know if anyone wants to share theirs, but I want to share mine. I think what I think I need is just to make sure that I'm connecting with my friends, checking in on them. So I like to send, I'm old fashioned right now, and I'm sending letters to people. And it's something that I love doing. I didn't know it was so fun to do, and getting creative with it and seeing my friends get excited to get the letters in the mail is something that is keeping me sane and keeping me going. And I think just making sure that I connect with people is going to keep me going these next few months. So thank you for sharing that reflection. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really wanted us to take time for reflection, and also I may use it for the future as well, because not everyone is able to take time to really take a moment and think about things. So it's always nice to be reminded to do that. Thank you. I will also still leave the floor open. I'm very comfortable with silence. That's what therapists always say. I'm just, wait, I'll stop filling the silence by talking though.
Question again. Oh
Yeah.
shit. My bad. He was about to say.
I know, there was so many people. All right.
Go ahead. Oh. Okay, what was the question? What was the question again? My bad.
My question? I didn't have one. I'm just using the floor for everyone who might have a question.
Oh, I don't have a question. I thought you had a question. I was gonna answer it. But my bad. Oh, I would say, like, for me, I feel like I've kind of been the opposite, whereas like a lot of people are trying to connect right now. I'm trying to disconnect, and I feel like that would be better for me, because I find myself giving more of myself than I not like to, but like saying yes when like I really know I need to lay the fuck down and like chill out, you know? So for me, I think it would be the opposite, just like kind of, or just finding a healthy balance between like kicking it or, you know, talking on the phone or whatever, and also taking my space. So yeah.
I really appreciate that. I really feel that taking your own space is something that's very forgotten. And it's something that, just like how I was mentioning before, being comfortable with silence, being able to sit in silence, because a lot of times it's very hard for some people to sit in that silence and be alone with their thoughts. And I think that this quarantine is something that is really forcing people to do right now. And I feel that getting used to that now is going to just help for the future, because we don't know when this is going to end, and it'll just help us in the long run. And
Sorry.
well, I was just going to say, and someone else wanted to speak.
I was just actually going to ask a question. Well, firstly, like, thank you for this. This was really informative, and I think a really great stepping stone for a lot of people not knowing what the heck to do, and like how to get started. So thank you for that. But for some people who maybe know, like, yeah, I know I need to go to therapy, I'm searching, is there like a specific, like a specialization we should look for like people just generally going, or is like, I'm not sure really if there's like a specific label I should be aiming for.
If someone doesn't have a specific label or specialization to look for, I would still recommend Because You're Here by qtpoc, friendly people, and people that are able to hold space for us specifically, and are able to also decipher our needs from the general population as a minority, because that is the first step. Having a mental health professional that is aware of those differences, aware of oppressions, and aware of certain things that are aligned within society, that is something that definitely, when you are in a session with someone, you really want to dive deep. In order for it to be helpful for you, if you end up being comfortable with this person, being able to dive deep, you want to feel comfortable, and you want to feel like this person can hear all of you, not just one side of you.
Yeah, totally agreed. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for your question. That's a good one. Everyone's is good. Sorry.
I have a question.
Shoot.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Victoria, for the lovely presentation. I'm also in the mental behavioral health space, and burnout is very real, especially right now. So it's a good reminder for me to be on the other side as a quote unquote potential patient. But I guess my question is, I'm hoping you can give examples of how to phrase like boundaries in conversations, so kind of making it if you can just give some phrases on how to go about that.
Okay. Without you don't have to give your personal boundary to give it away, but is there one in particular that you could imagine being difficult in any way? And just throwing it out there, this doesn't have to be your personal one.
Yeah, I think the emotional one.
Okay. So the emotional one I find to be very difficult for myself as well, because when someone needs you there in a moment, and it could be a moment of crisis, and you do not have the time or energy, you don't have to be coming home from an 8-hour day as an essential worker or working from home, or also any kind of work. You don't have to even, a lot of people are also laid off, so you could have stayed home all day and still not have the time or energy. That's none of their business. Even if they know what you do, that's your boundary. And that's something that I'm telling to all of you, that it's not someone else's time to consider whether or not you have that time. for them. The hardest part about the emotional one is standing your ground and knowing, okay, no, you can't use me as a therapist, and you need to get your own therapist. So, in a very nice way, being able to send them resources would help them if it's a crisis situation. Also, if you took a picture, I can make sure, double check that it will be on the resources that we'll email out. But that crisis line is something that anyone can call, and it's professionals doing it, not someone's friend. Professionals who are on the other line, listening to them, knowing where they are, and will be able to send out an emergency situation, um, um, an ambulance or something that's happening. That's why it's there. There's a reason why these resources exist. It's to be used. So keeping that in mind, also, sorry that this is so long, but it's just so much layers to the emotional one.
Yeah.
When your friend is in crisis, it's harder. But if you can talk to your friend when they're not in a crisis and have a sidebar with them about how when you are in crisis, I can't always be there, and talking to them about your own boundaries will also be very helpful. When they are in crisis, letting them know about the number, talking about texting hope to that number can also be a way of them talking to someone professionally too. But it's not your responsibility for someone else's emotions, and it's not your responsibility to be someone else's therapist when you're not being paid for it. And even if you're supposed to be trained, there's so many different layers to it. Hopefully, did you want me to dive any deeper into anything else?
No, I think that's good. I think it sounds like, I guess for me, as you were saying that, what came up for me was like the difference between having time versus having capacity. Yeah, which is two different things, because I might have time, but I just am not in the mental, emotional state to support someone.
And
Yeah,
that's,
so thank you for sharing that.
yeah, thank you for asking, because that's a very important one that I very much feel that is being used a lot during quarantine. I feel that I wanted to start up these mental health workshops because quarantine is really showing a lot of us different sides of ourselves, friends, family, everyone, really, also workplaces. So learning about each other's boundaries, having that talk with your friends is really important too. They might not know that you don't have the capacity, and just saying those words might actually open up everything to them.
Can I echo what Maria is talking about, boundaries? I think something with me I've learned is my work-life boundary has shifted now that I'm working from home. I'm sure a lot of people are kind of feeling this way, that the work-life, home-life balance is just blending in together, and just being able to set those boundaries up and know that after a certain time I'm done. I don't need to check my email, but I find it hard to set those boundaries up because I'm at home and my work is at home, so I feel like I can just keep working. So I'm wondering if anyone else is struggling with that right now in quarantine.
Anyone else struggling with work-life boundaries during quarantine?
Definitely.
It's definitely something that I've heard a lot of people talking about being more challenging, because at first it's fun that you don't have to drive in Sacramento, specifically, I'll say, because we might know about the driving here being particularly hard at times and the commutes. But when everything is at home, including our animals, including things that need to be taken care of, we notice it faster. And those boundaries can be blurred to when you need to start, when you need to finish. Also, if you feel that you've been resting even more than normal because you don't have that commute, it can be easy to answer that email at 10 o'clock at night instead of your usual hours, 8 to 5. So just thinking about putting in place those boundaries and putting your foot down. Boundaries to me, whichever ones you're talking about, is really up to you, to each individual person, to put your foot down. Stand your ground, stay there. Do not bend to someone else feeling like, no, you should do this. Well, actually, no, I shouldn't, because it doesn't make me feel good. And if it doesn't make you feel good in that moment, it's never going to make you feel good. It's not going to just change eventually. So also take in consideration that if something gives you a gut feeling, listen to your gut when it comes to boundaries. Is there any
I'd like to say something.
Cool.
Yeah, speaking about, I mean, boundaries could be at any level, right? You know, personal, societal. Someone wanted to bring up the fact that there's a lot of brutality that people of color, queer people, you know, face by police, and that there is a danger in calling 911 and calling the fucking authorities or whatnot. So I think it's really important, and thank you so much for sharing, you know, that we have these resources, that we have alternatives to, you know, systems that could just make things worse. So I think it's great.
Thank you.
You know, I hope more people feel comfortable, you know, reaching out to each other, you know, especially within this community, so that we don't have to reach out to those outside sources that might make things worse. But, you know, if you have to, you have to.
Yeah. And if someone is a danger to themselves or others, that is the case for therapists as well, in the case of a 5150. But if you do have the capacity to talk with your friends or get them connected with a friend that would be able to, that's a good point. Any questions or comments? The floor is still open. All right, I am now moving on. So I wanted to thank all of you for tuning in. This is our social media for Cuties of Color. This is our Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and this is also our website. Our YouTube, this video, if you want to share it with anyone, friends, social media, this will be right on here, Cuties of Color. And check out our YouTube. Make a comment on it when it gets posted, because you could suggest what types of mental health workshops you may want to see in the future to dive deeper in. And you can leave a comment saying that, like it. If you all want to, you can subscribe too. You don't have to. But I wanted to thank everyone for tuning in. And this will be posted so you all can share it in the future. And I'm going to also move on to references, because I like to give everyone credit and all that for things that I use. So thanks everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Victoria. This was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye everyone.
Thank you.